Welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. We are looking at the tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, where Tehran forces have seized a South Korean tanker. South Korea's foreign ministry is going to send a senior diplomat to Tehran. South Korea's foreign minister, Kang Kyung-hwa, says that she is making diplomatic efforts to secure the release of the tanker. The minister said that she responded to her counterparts in Iran and that the ministry will now be in talks with diplomats in Tehran and Seoul to resolve the issue. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps seized a South Korean tanker in the Strait of Hormuz amid rising tensions with the U.S. in the final days of Donald Trump's presidency. The South Korean tanker had been traveling from Saudi Arabia to the UAE when it was seized by Iranian forces. It is being held at Iran's Bandar Abbas port city. South Korea's foreign ministry has demanded the vessel's immediate release and also said that South Korean forces stationed in the Strait of Hormuz have been dispatched to the area. Iranian media has reported that the tanker was seized for polluting the Gulf with chemicals. This is not the first time that Iran has seized ships of other countries. It has a history of seizing ships if they belong to countries which have disputes with Tehran, and South Korea, which is withholding billions of dollars of Iranian oil export revenue, is certainly not on Iran's good books. The Strait of Hormuz, from where the South Korean tanker was seized, marks the most sensitive choke point for all global oil supply. Now, this narrow stretch of sea, just around 21 miles between Oman and Iran, is important because all tankers carrying crude oil from the ports of the Persian Gulf must pass through the strait. Now, in 2018, the daily oil flow averaged 21 million barrels per day, or the equivalent of about 21% of global petroleum liquids consumption. The presence of the U.S. Navy's Bahrain-based Fifth Fleet has so far prevented Iran from closing the waterway, but not stopped it from seizing ships. In fact, the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet has reacted, saying that it was monitoring the situation. This incident comes on the backdrop of worsening Iran-U.S. relations. Earlier, we spoke with West Asia analyst Mir Javedenfar, and he was from Tel Aviv, telling us more. Listen in.
Difficult because on the one hand, the South Koreans have had a very good relationship with Iran, very good economic relationship with Iran. Iran's, 60% of the cars that are being driven on Iran's roads as we speak it's a Kaya Pride. It's a South Korean car that was assembled in Iran. But they, on the one side they have good relations with Iran, but they have much better relations with the United States. There are 30,000 U.S. troops based in South Korea. They have extensive military and economic relations with the United States. So the South Koreans are in a bit of a tight spot here. And they can't satisfy both sides. They have to choose, much like many other countries. And I think they're going to have to try to negotiate. But will Iran release the tanker? Well, it's possible, but based on the previous precedent, based on the precedents that exist, Iran's not going to release the ship unless it gets something in return. And here, that the South Koreans cannot release the money because of the Americans. So, I think it is possible that this saga will continue and will depend on what happens with the Biden administration's relations with Iran, whether they will enter negotiations, or whether they will remove the sanctions. I think as soon as the sanctions are removed, the South Koreans will be happy to transfer the money.